Hello, this is Giselle Gamby, business and life coach and proud host of the Intuitive Pull podcast. We're now pivoting to season 4 with an invitation to raise the stakes. I know I was made to remind people to raise the stakes, to seize, to claim, and execute the vision that you've intuitively seen, and to never accept the crumbs. What would it mean if you raised the stakes in your own life? What would you say yes to? And what would you say an undeniable no to? Be inspired, be agitated, be activated, and most of all, hold this truth, that when you raise the stakes, the quantum field will show you dreams you didn't even know you had. Well, hello, Intuitive Pull community. This is a very different podcast episode because I am coming to you from Chamonix in France. I have been out for a run and I was inspired to record this episode all sweaty after a run in the woods or the forest of Paradis de Pras in Chamonix. Let me try and flip you around. So this episode is in service to what I've been present to and the reason for coming here to Chamonix. This episode is in service to completions and beginnings. Why am I here in Chamonix? Why have I travelled from Sydney, Australia? My mum is turning 90 in November, and my mum is Swiss, and she, for her 90th birthday, her gift to herself was to come back to her hometown in Switzerland and to see her remaining cousins for the last time and to see her Switzerland for the last time. And then we came to visit my brother's family here in Chamonix, and we've been here for just over a week now. In the theme of the last time, the many last times that I've been holding mum here on this trip, there truly is a theme of completion. And I was pondering that theme as I was running this morning, and the completions that I'm witnessing with mum, the completions that I have experienced, particularly in my process over the last 2 years. And I have observed that there are 3 energies of completion. The first energy of completion, and you may recognize yourself here, perhaps having completed something in the past, or maybe even something that is coming to completion now. And it's the energy of completion that comes with vulnerability. The one where you get knocked off your feet and you fall to your knees. That really full-on, emotional, very challenging moment of acceptance that something, a behavior, a pattern, a way of being, a thought process, a belief system, a personality, an identity is coming to completion. And sometimes we don't get with the program when that completion is knocking on our door, and we continue going down the path that we have gone down before until something happens where we are hit by a Mack truck, where we are literally, our feet come from underneath us and we are on our knees. And it's a real moment of surrender. And it's one that if we go into acceptance and we don't fight against the current, it's a very, very, very powerful moment of completion. It's not at all comfortable at all. It's not at all easy at all. the least we fight against it, the more graceful it can be, and it can be graceful, but it does come with a lot of emotion. I witnessed this with somebody maybe about a month ago. Enormous amounts of weeping and weeping and weeping and weeping until that moment of surrender. And he is well and truly on the other side of it, which is beautiful, and I'm sure he's going to be listening to this episode or watching this episode. So that's the first type of completion, that we come to acceptance of this completion, but yeah, very, 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 very vulnerable. The next type of completion that I want to speak to, and it's certainly been another energy that I have experienced myself, and it has been around actually a lot in the last probably year, and it's the energy that of fire of the dragon. When we come to completion with the fire of the dragon, when we come to acceptance that, as I said, this habit or this behavior or this way of being or this identity, this personality, this thought process, this belief system we come into acceptance that we are in a moment of completion, but it comes with the fire of the dragon. It's a very powerful, equally as powerful as the one of vulnerability, but it's a totally different frequency. It's a frequency that involves a lot of movement. It's a frequency that involves a lot of activity. So not only are we coming to completion with that energy of acceptance and the frequency of the fire of the dragon, but it's one with that we want to move. We want to move into these new beginnings. We want to move into the new. We want to move into our future with the fire of the dragon. Again, notice if that has been your experience, if it's happening now for you, or if it has happened in the past for you. It's a very powerful energy, completely different to the one that I just spoke to about when we're really knocked to our knees, but equally as powerful. And then there's one that I'm witnessing with my mum, and it's the moment where we come to completion, and that acceptance is mixed with real tenderness. It's a moment that sobers us up. It's sobering. It's challenging. It's hard, because there's an acceptance of finality. And in that acceptance of finality, it's an extremely tender moment. And the more we don't fight against it, the more beauty we can see. And we can really only see that beauty if we look through the eyes of our, through the invisible eyes. If we look through the eyes of our human self, we will not see the beauty. We'll just see hurt and pain and non-acceptance. But and it's probably one of the most precious things it's like having X-ray vision. And it's something that I know that I can see easily when we come into that moment of completion where we are in acceptance, but it is really toned with that tenderness. And, you can imagine that this is what I'm saying with my mum. And it can be, I feel a little choked up right now. It can be emotional. I've been crying with her when the moments have been there. And it's also quite a privilege to be in the experience of that tenderness. So it's interesting because it was the 31st of August a few days ago, and the park that I'm currently in, I took my niece and my nephews here to go pony riding, and we got here in the afternoon and the ponies were no longer here, and they said the season has finished. Completion. And then I look to the 1st of September and I become present to the energy in Australia, and it's the energy of beginnings. It's spring, and I am very present to new beginnings in my life, I am very present to new beginnings with the people that I'm coaching. When we come to completion, whether it's through all of those energies, what happens, therefore, is there's a spaciousness within ourselves that wasn't there before because it was clogged up with the energy of the former, with the energy of our history. And so when we have come to completion, either through any of those energies that I've just expressed, there's an inner spaciousness. And really, this has been the process that I've been on the last 2 years. I have so much inner freedom within me. I have so much space within me. I have so much, my capacity to love has grown so much. I have so much love to give that I have become even more available in my leadership than I really have ever experienced myself as. And so, of course, what arrives then is new vision. And the new vision that has arrived, which I have spoken about on this podcast already, is one where I actually have no choice, to be honest. I'm on a real, I feel like I'm in the rapids, and the rapids are taking me down a river that if I wanted to, I couldn't even put the oars to the side and hold on. There's a force of nature here, and the force of nature is asking me to make myself available to be of service to more and more and more and more people. Why? Because my capacity to love is huge. Why? Because I have done so much cleaning out. Why? Because I have come to so many moments of completion, and now I'm in a moment of new beginnings. I want to remind you about a new program, this current that I'm on, called My Best Year Yet. My Best Year Yet. Again, I feel quite emotional speaking about it. So I have worked one-on-one with people for the last 11 years, and prior to that I workshopped people since 2004. And my one-on-one work is absolutely divine, precious, beyond I could ever have experienced, powerful for all. And I have a capacity issue working one-on-one. I can work with up to about 15 people one-on-one, but beyond that I can't, and I don't want to. So how do I work with more and more people? Because my capacity to love has grown. I have been writing notes to self for decades. Not that I ever called them that until the last year. These notes to self are a sacred act of presence that I give myself, almost every day, at least 4 times a week. In these notes to self, I become present to my inner world. I become present to how I'm feeling. I become present to what I've not acknowledged. I become present to what I'm thinking. I become present to my fear-based thinking. I become present to my vulnerabilities. I become present to my gifts, my strengths, my zone of genius. I become present to my intuition, has space to be heard. I become present to new visions. I become present to my leadership, to going deeper and deeper and deeper into my leadership. And then what happens from that is, I then get moved. I then go and write blogs. I write articles. I write posts. I record podcast episodes. I bring what I've learnt through my notes to self into coaching. I have a huge map that I take people on, a journey that I take people on. These notes to self are, as I said, a sacred act of presence. They're a form of meditation for me. And without them, there is no way that I would be here speaking to you. There is no way that my business would be successful. There is no way that the results that my clients have been receiving would happen. I had a moment of brilliance, let's say, when I saw a new vision that would allow me to work with a lot of people by asking people into a group container where they become accountable to writing their own notes to self, where they become accountable to up-leveling their presence, where they become accountable to up-leveling their leadership, and their leadership from the inside out, in service to having their best year yet, over a year. These notes to self would be witnessed amongst other people, whether they're shared in a Facebook group and they're read and are given feedback, or whether they are shared on group calls, live, which is what I do with my coach every Thursday at 1 o'clock with my peers, and given feedback. These notes to self are golden. There's an unveiling that happens in this act of sacred presence. I feel like saying to you, imagine what could happen in 1 year if you gave yourself, or let's say it differently, if you committed to yourself to up-leveling your leadership from the inside out by making yourself accountable to writing notes to self and allowing them to be witnessed for a year. I feel like saying, imagine what could happen, but the thing is, we actually can't imagine what could happen because there's an unveiling that occurs. And the level of consciousness that we have right now today can't see what actually will unfold in 1 year's time. And for me, that is one of my greatest joys, to witness the unveiling, the unfurling, and the unfolding, to be in the wonder and the awe of what this act of sacred presence brings us, not only to ourselves, but to all the people that we impact. This begins 1st of November this year. I will put in the show notes a link to the landing page where you can read about how it all works. There is a pre-sale fee of $5,500, which is absolutely bloody ridiculous for the whole year. That pre-sale fee is available now, to be paid now. Then we also have a free masterclass at the end of September. Again, there's a link to the show notes for that masterclass. The fee will rise by the time we are at that masterclass. So I just want to finish this episode with this. When I was in Switzerland, which was about 10 days ago, I think it was, about 9-10 days ago, and I went for a run, and I sat by a park, and I went quiet, and I tuned into myself. I noticed a vulnerability within me in this new beginning. And the vulnerability was this, and it's paradoxical. I have such a knowing about what this program will bring to people because I've experienced it myself. Not only have I experienced it myself, but the people that I coach, some of them take on this active presence for themselves. We have 2 published authors as a result of that. We have another author who is onto her, it's a 3rd author who is onto her 2nd book. One of those authors is also an author of a screenplay, co-written with somebody else. None of these books were ever seen at the beginning of when they started writing their notes to self. There are so many other examples that I could give you of the tangible results that happen in relation to not only leadership for others, but leadership for self. Relationships have come back together, health has improved, cancer has gone into radical remission. We've moved out of financial chaos into more abundance than we could have ever predicted for ourselves. We have grown our leadership so significantly that we are impacting people beyond what we could have ever seen. These notes to self create tangible results in the most magical ways So going back to what I became present for myself about 9 days ago, I have such a knowing on one hand about what these notes to self do and what happens when we are in community and in the divine ecosystem of community, and we share them, because I've witnessed it. But I also have a vulnerability. And the vulnerability that I became present to 9 days ago was, just because these notes to self are the breath of life for me, they breathe life into my leadership. They are responsible for the results that occur because of the level of presence that I go to. Just because they're important to me, will they be important to others? And the other vulnerability that I had 9 days ago was, will people actually get this proposition that I'm making? I feel the tenderness now, even as I speak to you. And so I came home and in fact, it was after a big day out. I went to Interlaken with my son. It was now nighttime. And I carried both that knowing and that vulnerability into my evening that night. And I felt like writing a note to self, which I did. And that note to self ended up becoming a post which I put on Facebook. And I just want to say thanks to Linda, because the next morning when I woke up was a beautiful email saying, I'm in, how do I pay? I'm so excited about the not knowing. It's riveting not knowing, riveting to see the unfolding. And so I am putting myself out here on this podcast episode saying, are there any more Lindas who are ready to surrender into another level of leadership, another level of not knowing, another level of surrendering, another level of loving and trusting self and valuing self, that they would give themselves this practice of presence and be witnessed amongst others in the divine ecosystem of community. My vision is that by 1st of November, I'm going to put it out there, is that we have 50 people at the beginning of this program. Now, people can come in at any time. This is an evergreen program. And I also have 4 other coaches, some of those who are the authors that I mentioned, who will be co-facilitating this program with me. So that is my vision. It's vulnerable. Yep, I've just put myself out there. Yeah, it feels scary. Can feel myself a bit choked up. So here I am, showing up. Are you ready to show up? Are you ready to come to your own completions? Do you know what they are? Do you have a sense already? Have you been pushing them back? Are you ready to come to your own beginnings? Do you know what they are? Do you have a sense? Have you been pushing them back? Or are you ready to open that door and really take the leap into the not knowing? Details are in the show notes. You'll know from in here what feels right for you. I look forward to working with you should this proposition be received by you in your knowing, in your intuition, and you would love to share life over the next year with me. Thank you. Ciao, ciao from Chamonix. Hey guys, if you love this podcast, I have 2 requests. Number 1, sign up to the newsletter, which you can find in the show notes. Sharing is one of my superpowers, and there is only so much that I can share through the medium of podcasting. And I have very big plans this year to be radically generous to you. So sign up to that newsletter where you will be able to receive a whole lot more that I trust will be super valuable to you. And number 2, I'm a massive referrer of the people I love to the people I love. Please share this episode or podcast with the people you love, and let's create some more breathtaking ripples of impact.